Hi, my name is Soile, and you're listening to Heart to Heartland, a fan podcast from a fan perspective. Welcome back to the podcast. Okay, let's do this one more time, but this time we'll recap season 18 as a whole. Chris Tim Heartland said, I think season 18 was one of the very best of the entire series. Love the Amy and Nathan interactions, and you could feel the strong chemistry they have. Love the storylines about the Alzheimer's, and I'm glad they didn't sweep it under the rug easily. Love Tim's storylines, of course, with the classes, the job offer, the drilling, mentoring Logan, his advice to Shane, his scenes with Jessica, all his scenes with Jack. Wish there were more Tim and Jessica scenes though. There also were very few Lisa scenes. One of the best moments was the ladies rounding up the cattle. Really loved that scene. I didn't love Lou that much this season, but I didn't hate her either. Same for Katie. Michelle's acting was pretty strong this season. We also need Peter a bit more involved. I think the weakest episodes were the ones with Logan and Caleb. I just don't see any reason to keep them on the show anymore, other than a short visit. They're just a waste of screen time. We really need to go back to more episodes per season so that we can get deeper into the storylines and the characters. Then HL Horses said, I really liked this season. I thought everything was more high stakes this year, and unexpectedly so, like Nathan losing crown due to Lou. There were also a lot of things that I thought were going to happen one way due to context clues and how things usually play out on this show, but they ended up happening differently. Lou and Amy's fight, Tim's job, Lou's accident, the family's reaction to Amy and Nathan. The outcome was the same, but how we got there was different than I thought it would be. I really loved Amy, which is so weird for me because I've never cared about Amy's love life. I was super invested in this storyline the whole time, as I've said before, which was fun because it's been a while since that's happened, but also stressful considering what Amy went through this year. I think Spencer Lord has been a great addition to the cast, and he had some really strong scenes this season. I really liked the addition of his dad and what he's going through. I also thought Michelle's acting and the shooting of the accident was really good. She had a tough year. I was wanting some more apologies from Heartland's side to Nathan after everything went down, especially from Lou, but maybe next season. I think some of the weaker scenes were with Logan. Nothing against Drew, because I think he's a great actor, but I just don't feel like he fits with the rest of the storylines. I also didn't really like when Carrie was on screen either, but I think that has to do with my fear of him getting together with Amy. I hope I can enjoy his character again next season without the looming over their interactions. I feel like Lindy and Peter were hardly in the season. I felt this way last year. I know with only 10 episodes they can only do so much, but especially now that the twins are older, I hope they have more storylines, especially bonding with Nathan and having the hard conversation with both him and Amy next season. I know I keep bringing this up, but more Jessica and Lisa is always appreciated. Don't have much to say about Tim, Jack, and Katie, but Chris, Sean, and Bay always do a great job. I think my favorite episodes were 4, 5, and 10, with 1, 6, and 7 coming in runner-up. Thought episode 2 was probably the weakest episode. I don't have a lot of things I want for next season. Definitely the continuance of Nathan and Amy's relationship and all the life steps that come with it. I want Lindy to really bond with Nathan on a more serious level and see blended family scenes. I also hope Heartland has a plan revolving crazy that doesn't make her storyline a repeat of what we just watched this year. This is also just a thought I had and have had since something Nathan said in season 17, but I wonder if there's ever a thought to combine the businesses and herds. With Gracie now in the picture, not sure that's going to happen, but that way the competition would be gone and they would be fighting the big corporations together. Especially now with Nathan and Amy together, and Nathan potentially being there long term. Tim and Jack need someone to take over for them when they retire. Amy can do some, but she's more focused on horses, and Lou is more on the business side, so they need someone to take over the actual ranching, and Nathan would fit it perfectly. I also want Amy to have a female friend, but not that one season of a friendship would be all that great. Her and Caleb have that good friendship, and we did see Nathan and Amy start out as good friends, which was nice to see, but I want her to have a female friend to confide in. I also hope they delve more into Nathan's past and his reservations based on that past. Amy was so concerned he was holding secrets and not wanting to talk about the past, but that was sort of trod when Nathan told her about his dad. He told her his big secret, but nothing really about his past. He seems to have a lot of baggage with Tristan that I'm curious about. It would also be nice to see Nathan's mom. Thank you, Soile, for all you do, and let's hope for season 19. Then Sharon said, Season 18 started with apprehension and anxiety about the future of the ranch and Heartland beef. Lou is taking a prominent role in the business. Amy and Nathan's budding romance and their first hesitant steps. Katie dealing with teenage angst, trying to move into the adult world before she's ready. Katie with the horse was her healing, plus her talk with Lisa and Jessica gave her clarity about her place within her family and her home. Bay is becoming more and more entrenched in Heartland. In season 19, I would like for her to read Marion's journals and write a story about her grandmother's legacy and how Amy is continuing that legacy as well as her own legacy. Tim and Jessica. Their arcs were low-key this season. Tim wavering about his new job, having Shane come back and Tim talking to him about being either an absent parent or an involved parent, something Tim has experienced. Season 19 could see Jessica's half-siblings come to Heartland to get to know her. Lisa loved seeing her passion for her business. Having scenes with the gals working the cattle shows that she is a woman who can always be relied upon. Jack, continuing to say no, especially to Lou, regarding new endeavors for the business. I guess he'll never change, but say yes once in a while. There were no D at M's with Amy this season. I think that's a first. Lou, her year has been difficult, a lot of her own making. She made mistakes. Who hasn't? Her accidental disclosure regarding Nathan's dad, putting Amy in a difficult position between Nathan and the family. I thought her response to Katie's deceitfulness was a responsible and caring mother. Her accident in episode 9 helped her to realize her actions regarding Nathan and Amy. Her apology to Amy was something she needed to say and Amy to hear. Michelle's performance in episode 9 was fantastic and believable. Hopefully Lou doesn't mellow too much, but I feel that in season 19 she will be up for the fight against Gracie. Amy and Nathan, their flirting with each other was sweet and natural. Even when they sort of parted, they were still connected. Lou's accident and consequent apology helped Amy to realize her true feelings for Nathan, the same for Nathan with his dad. I was really invested in their journey, the consideration and compassion for each other. Their on-screen chemistry was there for all to see. I'm excited for their romance continuing, although there will be some rocky times. Crazy, they will overcome them. Nathan will continue his bond with Lindy, which in turn will strengthen he and Amy. I didn't care for Logan's arc. He had two moods, anger and self-pity. Think this was a setup to write him out as a recurring character and maybe come back as a guest. Caleb mooning over Amy didn't feel right, although Caleb matured, finally. What happens now with his character, I don't know. I can't see any arc for him, but maybe the writers will have something for him. Would like to have seen more of Lindy and the ladies of Heartland working together. My favorite episodes were 9 and 10. As I've said before, the season was the best in a long time. Having new writers and directors have pushed the show to higher levels. I sound like a broken record, but definitely need more episodes per season or less stories per episode so that not only the fans can enjoy, but for more in-depth storyline for the characters. What I want for season 19 is obviously more Amy and Nathan and Lindy, more Lisa and relationship with Lou, Amy, and Katie. I would like Lou to really step up for the business and her family. Jack to stop resisting new ideas. Katie to come into her own and possibly helping Amy, but not into a cowgirl completely. See Heartland through Lindy's eyes. I won't care if some of the horror stories are similar to before, as their owner stories will be different and varied. I guess we will get Crazy's backstory and real reason why she's returned. Maybe some old characters back, for example, Jade, Victor, and possibly Scott and Soraya. Does Jessica still have the gallery? It was a big storyline in season 17 and nothing in season 18. Jessica's arc as an artist retreat at the Dude Ranch. I would love for Rick to be included. Okay, that's enough from me. I'm sure I'll think of more, but we'll leave that for next year. Many thanks to Soile for her hard work on Heart to Heartland. It's much appreciated. See you all in season 19. Thanks for all your comments, not just for this episode, but throughout the season. As for me, I tried to gather my thoughts. I've only seen every episode once, so all of this is coming from that context. I want to capture this kind of moment because it shows what I remember from this season, as it's still fresh, or at least somewhat fresh in my mind, and I haven't had that like binge feel to it. Like maybe some stories work better when you watch the whole season together. But that is where I'm coming from as I'm speaking to you right now. I feel like overall this was a very good season. Obviously there are things that could be improved, but I think a lot of the faults this season had lie on the fact that we only get 10 episodes. And I know I keep saying that a lot whenever we are going through these short seasons, but it's just so true because I see a lot of potential in the storylines. I see a lot of things that could really be broadened if there would be more time in more episodes and all that. So it's always a shame when they have to kind of rush everything because as it keeps piling up, it gets to this point where you kind of think, I don't know that these writers actually know how to write things. Sure, it could be just that, but I also think a lot of it is because they only have limited time. And I would love to see longer seasons, obviously, and how that would change things because we've had longer seasons and I feel they've been more balanced and everything. So, with this sort of storytelling that they're doing, where stakes are kind of higher, I would love to see them having that room to explore those story arcs properly. That being said, I feel like this was a loose season for sure. And I think Amy and Nathan absolutely were one of the key elements of this season. So if you love those three people or if you enjoy watching their stories, this season was definitely for you. As for others, thinking back, I'm kind of like, what even happened with those characters? So I'm trying to think back about that right now. Let's say Tim and Jessica. I don't know if Tim had a very clear arc this season. Like when we think back to how this season started, we had the beef wars and everything, and it ended up with him thinking about another job. And if you would have to guess what happened in these episodes without seeing any of them, just the first episode and the last episode, you would probably have a very different story in mind. I feel like the episode where he and Jack had to step in and announce at the rodeo and do all of that, that was a really big turning point for Tim this season. But I don't know that he really had that big of a story arc this season. There were things that he did have, like some things with Logan, Shane, Jessica as well, but I don't know if it was really like coherent, if that makes sense. But I did like everything he really had going on, because the possibilities with him are really endless, because he isn't just one way. So you can have really heartfelt stories with him, or you could have stories where he messes up, or where he's being a little bit nasty, and all those kind of stories, and pretty much every kind of story you can think of, you could have with Tim. So I always appreciate that. But overall, I don't know that his presence was really huge this season. But thinking back, I did enjoy everything he did, I think. There isn't anything that stands out that makes me go, yeah, I don't know about that. So I think for Tim, pretty good season. Maybe not the most Timist season ever, but pretty decent, I would say. As for Jessica, she was barely in this season, unfortunately, but we did get some little storylines with her as well, like the polo stuff, her going off to photograph the wild horses, and then some things about her dad. But I feel like she wasn't really part of the family in a way for most of the season. I mean, obviously she wasn't there, but like for most of it, it's kind of unfortunate that she's not really attached to rest of the family that well. And I think, was it Sharon who said that, where did her gallery thing go? Like, does she still have that? And I found myself thinking ahead with her, because I didn't really have a lot to work with when it comes to this season. Like, I wonder if some of these things that happened this season are going to be bigger storylines in season 19, if we get a season 19. Like let's say her journey to photograph the horses. What if the gallery comes back? What if there's a storyline involving that? Or maybe some things from her dad's side come to the surface. Maybe some people come to Heartland and she has to deal with them and all the emotions that come with that. And I would definitely welcome that, because I still feel like we don't really know her or her background. It's almost fitting that she's married to Tim, because we barely know anything about his past as well. I mean, now we know he had a mother, but yeah, those could be something. And I do wonder, now that we know that Shane and Chloe are having a baby, like, could that be something that could be involving Jessica? Like, how does Shane feel about basically having a stepmother, but almost not? Because that is the tricky thing with Jessica. She's not really attached to the family members Tim has. So it would be really nice if Shane would kind of be like, well, obviously you're going to be part of this baby's life, because you're married to Tim, and I would love for this kid to have a safe grandmother, who they can lean on and trust and have there to help them as they grow older, especially with Jessica's dad, that situation, that there could be a lot of feelings and emotions involved that she has a hard time dealing with. And I would love to see Tim supporting her just as she has supported him. And in the process, we would get to know her a little bit more. Like, maybe she has hard time dealing with families. Maybe that's the reason why she's sort of keeping a distance. And I'm not saying she's not involved with this family. She definitely is. And I love every time she helps other family members and they are interacting with her. But I just feel like whenever she's gone, no one really talks about her or misses her. Well, besides Tim, of course, but like, what's her place in the family? I would love to see them explore that a little bit more. Now, obviously, there's Miranda, Shane's mother, and Chloe's mother, who are grandmothers to the baby. But I would like to see how Jessica would potentially feel about being a grandmother as well. Like maybe that's not something she's comfortable with. Like maybe there's more to her background story with the family aspect. Like maybe she doesn't like to be defined by other people in that sort of way. And that could really be an interesting story and tell that kind of aspect to family life, especially when it comes to this sort of marriage where you've had basically a lifetime before you actually met and got together and then got married. Like you have grown kids. Like how does that work? Like do you feel like an outsider? Is that by choice or because of something that you haven't really dealt with? Like I think that could really deepen Jessica's character a lot more because we know she was really hardworking when she was in New York, but then the cancer thing happened and she had to stop and rethink what she wants from life. So that could really tie her story together really well, I think. Then, as I was trying to think back to Jack's story, I was like, what even happened with him this season? He was there mostly to support other storylines, I feel like. There were a couple of interesting things that come to surface as I think back on this season. One of the things that I was really looking forward to was the death talk with Lisa, but they really dropped the ball with that one. And I wonder if it was on purpose or if they were just like unsure what to do with that kind of serious storyline. But I really would have loved them to explore more of that because we know that Jack doesn't like getting older. And then at the same time, he has obviously thought about these things. So that would have been really fun thing to expand even more. And maybe having some type of retirement plan. I know they've touched that a little bit in the past, but I feel like Jack doesn't really take it seriously. But at the same time, when he talked about what he would want them to do when he passes away, it was like, oh, he has obviously thought about this. So it's kind of an interesting conflict there, I think. And I feel like they should have done more with that. I don't know if that is something they are kind of again using to ground future storylines. I know it's a very heavy and scary subject, but at the same time, it's part of life and part of everyone's future at some point. We know Jack as someone who doesn't like change, but in this season, he took a few tiny steps, I feel like. We saw him trying that cooking show after Lou thought it was a good idea for them to promote the beef business. And then we saw him finally realizing that Lou is actually involved with the business and he has to communicate with her just as he is interacting with Tim. And then eventually he was open to expanding the herd with the bison. But at the same time, there were things that he liked to do his way, like when finding water and all that. And I really enjoyed seeing his scenes with Nathan Sr. and just having that life experience to guide him through these trying times the season had. But for the most part, I feel like he was in the background supporting other characters. And if I compare this season to some of the other seasons, it wasn't necessarily Jack's season either, but obviously it was good that he was there as much as he was because he's Jack Bartlett after all. And then Lisa kind of had a similar treatment as Jessica did. She was barely there. I was looking forward to seeing more storylines with her. I feel like when they were filming, it kind of gave me an impression that maybe she would have more storylines this season. She did have some highlights, I feel like. Especially the interview in episode 3 was really good. Like, that was really a Lisa storyline, and I love whenever that happens, which is rare, but it does happen sometimes. And the death talk was something I was really looking forward to, as I said before, because we know that Dan died recently, and even if Lisa was no longer with him and they have complicated past, obviously it impacted her and made her reflect a lot of things and things she's done in the past and things she's accomplished. And that's wonderful. And I think there were some of those things in this season and in the previous season as well. But I feel like even though she's not as old as Jack, it's always good to stop and think back a little bit like, okay, what are some of the things that you have done and what you should be proud of? And what do you think your future looks like? And what kind of dreams do you still have? And we saw her buy a new car this season, but it was not what I was hoping for from this Dead Talk storyline. It felt kind of random and not really Lisa-like. So maybe I would need to have more scenes with her to understand that side of her. Like, it just made me feel like she was having some kind of crisis more than she was chasing a lifelong dream or something like that. So I do wonder if there is more to what went down in that episode where she and Jack almost had that talk. Obviously, the biggest highlight along the episode 3 interview was episode 9 when Jessica, Lisa, and Katie were herding the cattle, and I really loved those scenes and the wisdom she and Jessica shared with Katie. I was also really surprised to hear her talk about her sister this season. It is something that I've been thinking about a lot, and I've been kind of waiting for them to explore her past, just like Tim's, but they haven't done that. So maybe, hopefully, that is something that we would see in season 19. I would love to see her reconnect with Tammy or maybe even meet up with Ben or something like that. I think there could be a lot of good stuff there, and I don't know, I just wish they would have more Lisa. So the storyline with Katie, when the season started, I was a little lost what was kind of going on with her. Obviously, I understood that she was passionate about her writing and wanted to take part of this group, but it was kind of like, okay, I feel like there's something bigger going on here, but I'm still not fully understanding the whole context. But I feel like they explained that pretty well in the last episode of this season when she said something like she doesn't want to grow up too fast, and that's sort of something she's realized this season. I did like that she was able to explore her creative side because even though it's kind of different from everything else that's going on with the family, it is still attached to the family. I mean, we have Lindy Bartlett, who was a singer-songwriter, and we have Jack, who also has a gift for writing, and then, you know, June Bartlett, and all these people before her, obviously Lou Fleming with the Mom's the Word book, but let's not get into that. But I did like that she has her own thing, and I do hope that she continues to keep writing and just pursue her passions, whatever they may be, because she doesn't have to be a horse girl to fit into the family, even though she now has a horse. And that was not something I really expected when this season started because I didn't feel like she was ever really longing for that. But I am interested to see if there's going to be more stories involving horses and her, and maybe that allows her to have more scenes with Amy, like as she connects with Dodger and starts understanding horses more and more, and how that'll inspire her and make her character grow into who she is supposed to be. I felt like she was really lonely this season. And there were some scenes where you could see her being happy whenever she was interacting with Jasmine, obviously, then some scenes with Parker and then Brandon. But I felt like everyone pretty much has abandoned her when it comes to her friends. And it's really sad to see because I feel like she is a really good friend. Obviously, she makes mistakes sometimes, but who hasn't? And I think it was really nice to see that episode where she goes to look at the sky with Parker and invites Brandon. Obviously, there were a lot of not so nice things she did in that episode, but at the same time, I think that's part of the growing up process. And I did enjoy seeing her connect with people her age and just being a kid who messes up and then tries to learn and apologize and be better. So I hope that is something we see in season 19. I would love for her to have a really good and close friends again. I mean, obviously, I would love that for every character in this show, but especially for her because she's growing up, and I feel like that is really important time to have those people around you who teach you who you are and what the world is like, and allows you to express yourself and learn from them, and in return teach them as well. So I hope that is in the cards for her in season 19. As for Lou, I think her story arc was really good this season. I feel like in some parts she kind of got stuck because the B-Force and her obsessive nature, but at the end I feel like it was a good wake-up call for her to realize that even though she thinks this is just business, it is a family business. So family is involved and she can't just treat them the way she would treat her coworkers in some other job. And I think that was a big learning curve for her this season. And I feel like we just got started. So I hope we continue to see her process in the next season. And I hope that everything we went through pays off, because even though I don't agree with many things she did this season, I think it was still very Lou-like. It was an important lesson for her to learn because we know she has these sides. She loves her family, but she also is very passionate when it comes to work, and she really loves to win. So combining all of those things, it was never gonna go down well. And then you have Amy with Nathan and all of that. So obviously it was a recipe for disaster from the go. But I think that is the fun of this type of storytelling, where you have really layered characters that you can use as an instrument to explore these themes and hopefully make people learn something new about themselves as well. The only thing I really missed this season was seeing her deal with Nathan in episode 10. I feel like that would have been something that could have helped her really turn things around, because I feel like a lot of damage got done this season. And even though Amy and Nathan got together in the end, just apologizing to Amy wasn't really enough. I feel like there should be a talk with Nathan, especially given that they have a history together, and we saw in episode 2, I think it was, them connect and Lou sort of understanding Nathan a little bit more and kind of letting her guard down a little bit. So I would have loved to have seen her circle back to that connection that they had previously before things got out of hand. And then I want to say that it is really interesting the way her relationship with Peter is right now. Like, really good in a way, but at the same time, it's kind of random. Like, when you think about the storylines we've had with Lou over the seasons, a lot of them have to do with her love life, and suddenly it's kind of like gone. Not that I complain about that per se, because I'm okay with seeing something else for change. And I really love that they really shifted from that angle, because there is so much more to explore when it comes to Lou's character. So I appreciate that, but it's just kind of weird to think about all of that past the ups and downs she went through with Peter, and now they're here. Like, it is a constant complaint with me. I feel like that they haven't really dealt with Lou and Peter's return to each other that well. I don't mind seeing them together, but it is just not really something that makes sense necessarily for me. Like, what is really the difference between them being co-parents to now being together? I mean, probably some level of intimacy, but like, really, that, like, how is this working out? I don't know. It's complicated, you know. Then when it comes to Amy and Nathan, I feel like Amy and Nathan as a relationship is kind of different than Amy and Nathan separately. I feel like Nathan had a really good season. I feel like a lot of his things were intriguing, and the season gave Spencer a lot to play with. I especially enjoyed seeing his scenes with Jack and then with his dad, obviously with Amy as well, but then those moments connecting with Lou and Lindy. I am hoping that in the future seasons, or possible future seasons, we would see more of him connecting with the rest of the family, especially with Tim, because it seems like Tim is pretty okay with him. And that to me is interesting because Tim has always resisted pretty much every guy in his daughter's lives. So what's going on there? I would love to see that, but I don't know how much of that should I even expect with his sister coming back and probably making a big mess that he needs to deal with. We saw his ex. We saw some cute scenes with Molly. We saw him dealing with Caleb. There were a lot of things that happened to Nathan this season. Not necessarily for him, but as an audience member, I couldn't help but enjoy pretty much every scene that he had this year. Then when it comes to Amy, I feel like she kind of got lost in the mix, which is probably kind of a weird statement to have, but let me explain a little bit more. I understand that as a main character of sorts, she has to be involved with a lot of the storylines, and I don't mind that, but again, with a short season like this, I feel like that makes her growth suffer a little bit. When I think back to this season, there are not many things that I feel like changed for Amy. Obviously, she found love, but as a character, I don't really know that I learned anything new from her per se. Obviously, I loved whenever she stood up for herself and spoke her mind. That is always beautiful to see because for so long she didn't do that, or she was walked over, or people just ignored her. So I did enjoy seeing that part of her, but she was kind of going back and forth between looking after Lindy, teaching Logan, having to be the middle person between Nathan and Heartland beef, and then arguing with Blue, and I don't know, like she was involved with a lot of things, but it left me this impression that she was kind of being like this little ball in that kind of flipper machine where everyone else gets to poke her and she moves around, but she doesn't really settle long enough for her to kind of explain herself or what she's going through, which is kind of a sad thing because what did Nathan really learn about her this season, if you think about it? I don't know that he really had a chance to get to know her. And I think it's a tricky thing because we as an audience already know her, but what does he know about her? What did she teach him about herself? Whereas he was able to open up to her and tell about how he was feeling and share some of the things that he has been through in the past and let her see his fears and his very fragile moments and all those things. But I don't know that we really saw that in return. So it is interesting that Amy was kind of like, I don't really get to see inside of you. Like, I feel like you're holding something back, but then in return, she didn't really, or I feel like she didn't really return that to him. And it is complicated because as a couple, they had really nice moments, like the dog show in episode 1, the dance and the scenes with his dad, especially the wood scene in episode 5. Then the picnic where she has to share to him that Lou let it slip that his dad has Alzheimer's to Crown Shoppers CEO or whatever the guy was. Like, those were really interesting scenes and really strong relationships scenes, and obviously the finale with the kiss and all that. But I feel like Amy was shadowed by a lot of things this season. Obviously, again, 10 episodes, but I also feel like Caleb and Logan were kind of distractions for her story this season. I mean, why did we necessarily need Caleb back? For him to be her friend? Okay, but like a lot of the scenes involving them was mostly only about him pining over her and holding back feelings, and it's like we've seen that already. Why did we have to see that again? Only for him to end up with Ashley? I feel like we could have gone there without having to waste time with him and his feelings toward Amy. Like, I just didn't understand that. And as for Logan, I understand maybe they wanted to write him off in a way that they would be satisfied with, but at the same time, he felt really disjointed from the rest of the stories, and he had a lot of screen time. Like I've talked about in the previous episodes, a lot of his scenes involved horses whenever there weren't a lot of other horse scenes happening. But I think that alone doesn't save his scenes for me, at least. So I feel like if you would take Caleb and Logan's stories away from this season, I don't think you would really miss anything. I think the season would work as it is, but that would then release more time for, I don't know, Amy's character, Lisa, Jessica, whoever. I think it would have made the season even stronger. I do think that the season overall had a really good traumatic beats, and there were many interesting themes in this season. And while there weren't a lot of episodes with Amy having a client, I really loved, especially the guy with the horse named Shushi. I forget his name. I'm sorry about that. And then the lady with the bird and the horse. I really liked those clients. I feel like they were able to bring out more from Amy, and I think that is part of where we get to know more about Amy. And because there weren't a lot of clients this year, we sort of missed that. There were some other clients besides those two, but I like those two the most. And I feel like, in a way, it was a smart decision for them to combine season 17 and season 18 together to really keep those themes from the previous season going. But I do wonder if that is going to be a problem next season, because is it going to be 2024 next year? Or are we going to jump ahead 2 years to 2025? Because that is going to be confusing, and I feel like we will miss a lot. And again, it goes back to having short seasons. I don't think they would have had to do something like this if we would have more episodes, because the story would have time to develop and evolve within just one season. I did also enjoy seeing new writers and new directors. They all added something new to the show, but at the same time, with the same cast and same settings and all of that, we were still able to maintain that Heartland feel throughout the whole season. I think My favorite episodes this season were episode 1, episode 5, episode 6, episode 9, and episode 10. I do think we had a really strong start this season. There were some like okay episodes after that, but they weren't really standouts for me personally. But then the episode with the dance and Nathan's dad leaving the house and all of that, I think it picked up again. Like really traumatic stuff happened and the payoff was really nice. Then we had the road trip with the sisters and Lisa. I really love stuff like that, so I really love seeing that. Then we had okay episodes, and I think we ended the season really strongly as well. I really enjoyed seeing the conclusion of Lou's story and how Michelle was able to stretch her acting with something very different and just show that she is not only good with the comical stuff, but also really good with the traumatic stuff as well whenever she's actually given stuff like that. So I think the weakest episodes for me were episode 2, but I did like the Lou and Nathan scenes in that one. And then episode 8, but I did like the Lindy and Nathan scenes in that one as well. So there were always something that I liked, but there were also a lot of things that kind of became this like porridge inside my brain that I can no longer even remember correctly. So yeah, I think it was a strong season, and I'm really happy that we got to see these episodes. And I hope that there will be season 19. I'm pretty positive that there will be, but we'll learn more about that later on. And again, I really want to thank you for sticking around and listening to the podcast as we go through this season together, being wonderful commenters, listeners, lurkers, whatever is your thing. I've really enjoyed reading your comments and just enjoying your takes and your humor and everything that we've experienced together. And yeah, I'm gonna leave you with this episode for this year. I'm thinking of doing more episodes next year, but I don't know when I will be back, but I will definitely need a little breather because this was intense. 10 episodes back to back, doing a new podcast episode every week with everything that's going on in my other live as well. It's kind of a heavy duty, especially because it really gets busy for me around this time of the year. So I wouldn't mind if they would actually release a new season in springtime, because that is more mellow time for me personally. But can't complain. I love new episodes, and I hope we get to see more of them. So until next year, keep your noses clean and your powder dry, as they say. Have a lovely holiday time and Happy New Year. I'll talk to you again next year. Bye.